Well, hello folks. We are looking at trees that are finally starting to blossom. We're in a warm spell here and it looks like it's going to stay that way for a while. Today it was in the upper 70s and hopefully there's no frost in the immediate forecast. Don't need the blossoms to freeze. This is a peach tree in our yard. You can see it's just beginning to get covered with lots of blossoms. It hasn't even leafed yet, but the blossoms are coming out on it. This and the other trees right here we planted about 4 years ago. Got them at one of those big box home improvement stores, and last year was the first year we really had any fruit on any of them, but not that much, and it wasn't that great, but they were just starting. But hopefully this year we'll see what happens. We'll take you through the season and see how they do, and we'll show you how we spray them, and hopefully we'll get some fruit this year, unless, like I said, we get a late frost that kills the blossoms. But it's May 1st now, and hopefully we're over the worst of the cold weather. We never know for sure the way this year's been, but as you can see, this tree is just wanting to put out lots and lots of blossoms this year, so keep the bees busy. This tree here is not quite as far along, got a few little green buds starting on it. This is a cherry plum tree. A friend of mine gave me this as about a 6-inch seedling, and it's grown, as you can see, over the years. It produces small sweet plums, just a little bit bigger than large cherries. They're very good, but we're still waiting to get a good harvest from this one. This is one of our 2 pear trees. I forget which variety this one is, but it hasn't done anything yet in the past 4 years. I mean, it does leaves, but it has had no blossoms, so therefore no fruit yet. I'm hoping this year will be the first year that we start to see some blossoms and some fruit on here. But it looks like we might have, maybe that's a blossom starting there. We'll have to wait and see. Now our other pear tree here, this one we had half a dozen pears on this last year for the first year, but this year, as you can see, it's just starting to put forth a whole lot of blossoms. This tree has really grown. I keep having to cut this thing back and cut this thing back every year because it just wants to keep growing and growing and growing. It'll be right up in my wires in a year if I don't stay on top of it. All of these fruit trees I prune back late winter when it's cold, that there's no blossoms, no sap running or anything like that, so it's not as hard on them, and been trying to shape them to some extent so that they will produce the maximum amount of fruit. You don't want them to be too crowded, but you want nice solid branches for the fruit to grow on. Then we have over here, we have an apple tree. This is, I think, a Golden Delicious. You can see the apple trees are a little bit further behind the other fruit. They're slow and starting to put some leaves out, and no real blossoms yet from the apple tree. So we'll see that. Here's a second apple tree. I'm trying to remember what this one, if this was a Gala. I want to say it was a Gala. With some of these fruit trees, you have to plant 2 varieties together so you get good cross-pollination, and that was the case with these. The Golden Delicious or Yellow Delicious are kind of a universal pollinator for, or at least a common pollinator for apples. So I had to plant that one to get this one to hopefully produce well. We got a few apples off of it last year, but hopefully this year it'll take off. Just a quick point here. Why in the world do I have these trunks painted white? Learned a lesson the hard way a number of years ago. In the springtime, when the temperatures are warm during the day and very cold at night, what can happen is the smaller trunks, because they're darker colored, they will sometimes split because of the sun hitting them, and and causing expansion with the sap inside. So they recommend when your trees are small, paint the trunks at least up to the first branch white, so that it reflects the sunlight in the early spring, so the temperature control stays pretty much even. You can get little white guards, spiral guards that go on them too. I did have them on these until they got bigger, but now I'm just painting the trunks. When they get a few years older, I won't have to do that because they'll be stronger and I won't have to worry about it. But I had a number of fruit trees, maybe 20 years ago, that the one winter was so harsh that, and then the spring was so unpredictable, that almost all the trunks split. And by split I mean top to bottom, not across, but top to bottom. And I lost probably a dozen trees because of that. So with these I didn't want to lose them, so this is what I'm trying. And here also we have a few blueberry bushes. As you can see, they're just starting to put out some leaves here. This is my largest one. I got a fair amount, probably got maybe a cup or two of blueberries off this last year. These have been in the ground 3 or 4 years too. We got them very small, so these are just starting to come. Hopefully they'll produce enough blueberries for us that we don't need to buy any, but until then we're still just trying to nurse them along, get them to grow some each year. What I've got to do yet this spring, I should have done it earlier, but I didn't get around to it. And you can see this one here has a fair amount of blossoms. Blueberry bushes love acid soil, so what they recommend is if you've got sawdust, sprinkle sawdust around the base. So I know I have some in the barn. I also, from cutting firewood, have the saw chips coming off the chainsaw. So I've got to sprinkle that around there to increase the acid around them. Oh, and while we're here, I'll show you these. This is something new for us. These 3 plants starting here, that's rhubarb. A friend of ours gave us some plants. My wife wanted to try some rhubarb. I could leave rhubarb. I don't care for rhubarb, but she wanted some. So we planted them in the fall, which is when you transplant them. And lo and behold, 3 out of the 4 I planted have come up. So I would imagine in a few weeks, the rhubarb stalks, you don't eat the leaves, you eat the stalks. That's what they use in rhubarb pie or rhubarb jelly. So hopefully we'll get some rhubarb and she'll be happy. So that's just a brief look at some of the stuff that's starting to grow here now, and we'll keep you up to speed throughout the course of the spring and the summer as things begin to grow and put out fruit and other food for us. So thank you for watching.